All right, and this situation today definitely is a spillover on the conversation on police brutality in the country that was meted out on university students while they were protesting the arrest of Babu Owino, Member of Parliament for Embakasi East, who served as a student leader for years at the University of Nairobi. Joining me in studio now is the Vice Chairperson of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, George Morara. Thank you very much for coming in. I think I'll just let you react first to the closure of the university following the recent day events we've seen.
Well, I don't think the closure of the university really is the right way of handling the situation that has been unfolding, given what the students underwent for the last, since the 28th of this month.
Yes.
For us as a commission, we think this closure will really come in the way of what we've been doing there. We've been investigating, been asking students to come forward and speak to us. So far, we've been able to speak with the 35 students who are victims. And we're also able to talk with not only students but also lecturers. We had focus group discussions with 60 a group of 60 from the University of Nairobi, which is made up of both students and lecturers, especially the ones from the ADD as well as the medical students. So we are very concerned that this closure comes at a time that will make it fairly difficult for us to conclude the investigations that are already underway, especially if the students go to their rural homes, and therefore it will be very difficult for us to resolve this issue. If indeed the university was concerned about resolving the issue, it should have actually come out very strongly to engage in dialogue with the students, address their concerns. But what I've seen so far from the communication from the university points to really casualizing or downplaying the sheer brutality that was meted out on the students by the police.
But the reasons that were given are that there are security concerns because what had gone round that the students were planning to continue protesting?
Well, what I'd want to say then, this comes almost after, when did we first start experiencing this? It was on the 28th. The students came out to say they had been brutalized, they'd been beaten. Actually, a case I thought what I was watching was a horror movie until we sent our officers in there to verify, talk with the students who had been injured, and indeed it's come out that students were brutalized, they were beaten, a good number of them were injured. We have cases of students jumping from their halls of residence, the third floor and all this. So for me, I would have expected, at the minimum, for the university administration to come out and address the concerns and assure the students that they're actually safe and secure within the precincts of the university. But to get to where we are now, this very unfortunate situation of closure, as I said in my opening statements, points to a situation whereby the students are resorting to other methods to get the attention of the university. It shouldn't be that way. These are not if you will, these are not just children. These are mature, young adults, and we need to engage them and not trivialize the issues of concern. So I think for me, it's come to this level because there hasn't been any meaningful dialogue between the students and the university administration.
And the university administration.
Yes.
But we also understand that IPOA has asked any students now to come before them and record statements. But George, this is not the first time the country is witnessing such a situation. We hear human rights groups, they make a lot of noise, they ask questions, they ask for some issues to be addressed, but it ends there.
Unfortunately,
it's like a cycle.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what I can say is that we are starting to sound like a broken record, really. I've even seen the sheer levels of frustration pushing some of your colleagues. I hope what I was reading on social media, Ken Mijungu and all the others saying that if this is not handled, then what is the point? There is actually reason for us to feel legitimately frustrated. The whole issue of police reforms started in 2007, 2008, following the post-election violence. And a lot of resources have gone into reforming our police service, actually moving it from a force to a service. But when we see these acts continuously happening, then we are left to wonder whether indeed we are making any progress. But then, as a country, I always say this, we've not suspended our constitution. Our laws are intact. We've not suspended the regulations governing the police. And what happened at the University of Nairobi should not happen to any Kenyan, whether they were caught within the precincts of the University of Nairobi, whether they were out there demonstrating peacefully in line with Article 37 of the Constitution. That is not the image of the men and women who taxpayers pay to keep them safe. So I hope this time round, to just answer your question, what we're doing is to find out who are the commanders in charge of the police units that were sent there. We're doing this investigation. We are actually encouraging more students to come out, just like IPOA has done. They're asking the 26 that they say were injured to come out and report. We are talking with the 35 that I've said, and I hope we'll push this forward to its logical conclusion so that there's individual criminal responsibility in line with the laws of this land for those ones who are actually assaulted during this very latest and very unfortunate incident. It cannot be business as usual. We can't be talking and then the police officers come out, they deny, we go to the same cycle again. At least we need to start taking our laws seriously and enforcing the requirements of the rule of law.
But it really does look like businesses as usual, because let's look at a few months ago. We've seen a 9-month-old baby who's found, the 6-month-old baby from Kisumu. We've seen the 9-year-old girl in Mathare who was shot. These are just some of the instances from the few months ago that we have seen, and noise has been made and there's calm until another incident happens, and then we bring up this conversation. As a Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, what are you doing to just try and put a stop to this once and for all? One,
the police and the Kenyans must understand that the situations that led especially to the death of the 6-month-old baby and the 9-year-old were situations that are actually protected by our Katiba, the Constitution. These Kenyans had gone out there to demonstrate. But as was the case in the University of Nairobi for baby Pendo, we are told the police went to their house and pulled, assaulted the parents within their house. And in Mathare North, what happened, actually now the police are telling us that this 9-year-old was shot by thugs. I'm wondering how the thugs could break the heavy police cordon that was there to actually reach the 9-year-old. I've said before, unless the police are admitting that they still have Waiganjo-like elements in the police service who can break the cordon of the police and actually get to harm a 9-year-old. What we're doing as a commission is to emphasize what we've always emphasized, that rights come with responsibilities. Kenyans have a right to go out there and demonstrate. And while they're doing it, they shouldn't be subjected to undue brutal force from the police. So I hope really that we conclude the discussions we've been having with the police, whereby we want them to work with all the stakeholders to develop guidelines. So when people go out there to demonstrate, what are the do's, what are the don'ts? But currently it looks like we are criminalizing any rights that are protected under Article 37. So as a commission, we are really working to breathe life into those rights so that the demonstrators are able to go about their business without any interference, while at the same time not interfering with other people who are not interested in their demonstrations.
You talk about police reforms, and I'm glad you brought that up. And we have been hearing time and again that a lot of money is going into reforming and changing the face of the whole police service. But with incidences like this, do you really think these reforms are working?
Well, the money,
where you sit?
From where I sit, we can increasingly say that what we hear from the police service and the people funding the reforms is a different story from the reality we see on the ground. And one will be excused and forgiven to say that if indeed, with all the money going in, this is the behavior, then that money is going down the drain. But having said that, I think there are a number of things that the police are trying to embrace. We are always told it's a few rotten apples. I miss the days of the late Saitoti, who could not equivocate or prevaricate in a situation like this. He could actually come forward and admit, yes, this is not the police service that I'm under. This is not the police service that are under me. And if there are those ones who have actually messed or stepped out of the confines of the law, then they should step aside. We saw Saitoti coming out very clearly on the shooting on Langata Road and all this. But I think we are relapsing into a culture of instant and constant denials, especially from the top echelons of the police. And if denial is the mode of operation, then reforms can't go on. If you're told there are a few rotten apples, we want to see those rotten apples within the police service brought to book. We want to see the rule of law apply. Otherwise, I'm sorry to say that all the millions that are being pumped into these police reforms will come to naught if we do not see a change in behavior from our police service.
And you talk about taking responsibility. The other day we heard the CS say that they can't really act until they get he gets a report from the Inspector General, the same Inspector General who seemingly doesn't seem to know whether there was police brutality meted on students or not.
And that's a very unfortunate state of affairs, because we expect the Inspector General of Police to come forward and actually be the first one to own up and say, you know what, those are not my men or women that are carrying out those kinds of actions. But when he comes out and his first reaction is that he doesn't know whether there was any violence, I'm not aware, then that is actually a denial that is actually taking us back to a very dangerous era that this country is moving away from. Ask yourself, Akisa, how come, from what we're seeing in social media, there seems to be swift and effective, quote-unquote, punishment of the so-called ringleaders? They have been identified expressly, they have been expelled. I don't know whether the Senate even start to deliberate their cases and expel them. Yet, the police officers who went there, as one person has aptly asked on social media, we don't seem to be knowing who they were. If the university has a mechanism to identify, quote-unquote, among their students, the ones who are ringleaders, and take action against them, we hope and believe that the police should also have, they do have a mechanism to identify the people. At the minimum, we're asking Boynet, whom did you deploy on that day? Why is your deployment schedule? Who was the police officer in charge of the platoon that went to the ADD, flashed the students out, molested and harassed students, including really sexual assault that has been reported to us by female students that we're very much concerned about. Some police officers has been reported to us were groping the female students, groping their breasts, touching their buttocks or fondling them, asking them if they had underwear on. That is not the image that we should be getting from the police service, and nobody, including the Inspector General, should come out and defend those actions and acts. What you should be saying is, this has been brought to my attention, I'm going to ensure that doesn't happen, and this is not my police service. But to come out and say, well, I don't know, I didn't see that, and all this, that is what I call prevarication and equivocation, which is not good for the service.
From the focus groups you say you've had with the students and the lecturers, as well as the investigations you're conducting, one might want to imagine, to try and guess what kind of state the students are, especially those who are direct victims. What are they saying, those you had conversations
The
with?
students are traumatized, and legitimately so. We've actually also known that some of them are taking steps internally, especially the students who are the ADD. Akisa, remember that on Thursday when they were attacked, from what the lecturers have told us, that is when you get the full house of students attending the lecture, because they're given back the assignments, they're given new assignments and all this. So there are about 120 students on that day in class, and a tear gas canister was lobbed into their classroom. They were lured, told, come out, nothing is going to happen, and then they were beaten out there. We all saw those pictures. Some are saying that they are fake and all this, a good number of them. But even the genuine ones, the one that is genuine, what is being done about that one which is genuine? So the students are traumatized. We are working with a group of medical officers from across the partners that we work with to ensure that they undergo psychosocial support, counseling, so that they're able to come out and really speak to us freely and start the healing process, because that's not what they asked for. When they went to class on Thursday, when the architecture students were doing their drawings and really working hard to earn their degree, that's not what they asked for. And not to say that there were not demonstrators on the streets, because we are again made to understand that there are a few students who are actually walking up and down on Mombasa Road, State House Road and all this. Those ones should have been dealt with in line with the law. But the ones who are flushed out of their halls of residence and the lecture halls, completely crossing the line, unacceptable, but we're doing what we can to work with them to see that they heal and they give us information that will help us seek accountability for them.
But with the school closed, you just admitted that it will be very difficult to conclude your investigations. Where does this leave you as a human rights body?
Well, fortunately, we already have what we can call a sample of what happened there. Like I said earlier, we've spoken to 35 students. We spoke to a group of 60 that was made up of students and lecturers, and this will form a basis. But we are still asking Kenyans, wherever they are, the students who are there who are assaulted, to reach out to us. They can reach out to us confidentially. Our free SMS number is 22359. We want to thank the ones who have already come out to report to us, and we're encouraging the ones who have not reported to come and report to us, so that we may intervene at two levels, give them counseling in partnership with our partners, but then also ensure that we get the information that will make us move beyond the usual talk, and we start seeing officers being held individually and criminally accountable for any acts that go beyond the confines of the rule of law.
Okay. Judge Morara, thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News. The voice of the human rights activists here from what we have been witnessing as a country for the past few days. The University of Nairobi today was closed indefinitely, and it has been pegged on security issues. And of course, there has been an uproar on social media and beyond on the kind of violence that was meted out on students when they were protesting on Thursday. So we will continue to keep tabs on that situation. IPOA says they are investigating. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is also investigating that. So we continue to keep tabs on that situation here on KTN News. Judge Morara is the vice chairperson at the Kenya